made this simple bento bread bag the other day, and I thought someone else out there would love to know how to make it too. It's really simple. If you're a beginner sewer, this is a great project for you. If all you can do is sew a straight stitch, you're golden. That's all you need to know how to do for this video. Follow along and I'll show you. And I don't know if you're on the bread train or not. I love making sourdough, but let me tell you a little secret. I didn't have any bread, any fresh bread, so in my bread bag today, I've got my daughter's little squishmallow. Just to show off how the bag works. Okay, to make the bag reversible, you're gonna need 2 pieces of fabric. You can use the same fabric if you want, or contrasting colors like I am here. You want your fabric, whatever your height is, you're going to multiply the length by 3. So I have chosen to do 12 inches by 36 inches, and that worked out really well for me the other day. They recommend that you could use linen fabric. I didn't have any of that, so the second choices were cotton and muslin. So I'm using 1 piece of cotton and 1 piece of muslin. And I'll just get it pinned together here. You can, of course, use this tutorial. You could use this bag for other things too. It doesn't have to be just bread. But if you're trying to use less plastic, this is a great way to store your homemade bread or even store-bought bread. And, you know, have less waste. I was thinking it would even be cute to make like a really tiny version, and you could use it for getaways. You could put your makeup in there. It could be a cute little bag, gift bag, if you had a small gift to give. You could even use it for your lunchbox, store your things in it. But the bread is kind of all the rage now. Are you team sourdough or team yeast? What do you like to make? Or what do you like to eat? I started making sourdough a couple years ago, and I just don't think any other bread compares to it. It's so good to me. In fact, I had a piece of Italian bread the other day, and to me it was just so bland. So, okay, once we get it all pinned up, then we're ready to sew. So real quickly, I'm just going to show you my trick for sewing things together and leaving an opening. I simply just turn the pins the other way so I remember to keep this spot open. So this is exactly like you would make a pillow. I've pinned it together. I'm going to sew a half inch seam allowance all the way around, and then when I get back to here, I'll stop and do a back stitch, leaving this section open, and then that will allow us to be able to turn it the correct way. Before you pin your fabric, always double check that you put right sides together. This fabric doesn't seem to really have a right and a wrong side, but make sure yours is the correct side. You want right together so that when you turn it inside out, or excuse me, right side, yeah. So when you turn it the correct way, your fabric will be facing the right way. Okay, like I said, we're going to be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So on my machine, oh, I think there's a glare for you, but I know it's this second line past the presser foot. So just from using that seam allowance so many times, so that's where I'm going to line up the edge of my fabric. And we'll put the presser foot down. I'm pulling out my first pin, and I'm ready to sew. Remember to do the back stitch. Unfortunately, let's see if it works. Oh, it worked. It's been giving me trouble, so I'm so glad it worked. You want to do the back stitch whenever you start and stop a seam. And I'm just keeping it lined up there the best I can, pulling out the pins as I go. This is so simple. If you've been sewing for a while, you already know how to do this, but I just taught this to my daughter the other day, so I thought, you know, if you are a beginner, this is a simple thing that maybe you've never learned. So when you get close to the edge of your first corner, you kind of get close and judge how far is about 1/2 inch. And then probably every machine's different, but probably on the side of your machine there's a wheel where you can control the needle. And so what you're going to do is, I've already done it automatically, but I'll show you again. You're just going to put the needle down into your fabric and you're going to keep it there. Then you're going to lift up your presser foot and spin your fabric. And hopefully, yep, we're pretty close. We've lined up pretty well there with the 1/2 inch mark. It's a little bit hard with one hand. So we're completely turning our fabric there, and then we can put the presser foot down and start sewing again. I'm sort of a self-taught sewer, and as I've said in other videos before, I am not a perfectionist. I just try to do simple things and get the job done. But I do remember struggling with that little tip there, and thinking that I would just sew all the way down and then start a new line on the next side, but you don't have to. You want to just keep it continuous as much as possible. So here we go again. I know it's at a distance for you, but I'm putting the needle down, that's just holding the fabric somewhat in place so we don't have a crazy seam. Lifting the presser foot up, just spinning the fabric. That one is perfectly on the 1/2 inch, and putting it back down. And then you're good to keep sewing. So we didn't have to cut our thread and line everything up again. We're just gonna keep it going. That's another thing that makes this project so simple. It's really just sewing 2 pieces of fabric together with a few other things I'll show you. Okay, I've made it all the way back around here to that pin going the other way. So again, just do a back stitch. Yay, it worked again, I'm so glad. Just to solidify that so that when you do turn it, let's see, right side in? No. Why am I having such a hard time with that? When you do turn it the correct way, it doesn't pull the seam apart, that's all. So you can see we have a hole here, so maybe you've made a pillow before, I don't know. But what I do is I just kind of put my arm, wrist, whatever, right in there. And I go for the farthest end first, and then I'm just kind of grabbing that and then pulling it back through. And just keep doing that. You can kind of just work it out. Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not like a professional seamstress or anything, but I do try to do a good job with my corners. So, and just ironing. It looks like I didn't even iron this, but I did before I started. So, I'm using a ruler here. You want something kind of with a blunt edge. You don't want like a pen or a pencil that might poke through. A crochet hook would work. Maybe a, marker end or something like that. But I'm just kind of taking it and just poking the corners. And my iron is downstairs, so I'm not going to show you that part. But what I do is I take the ruler right with me. And let me change this view so you can see a little bit better. So I actually will reach my hand in here with the ruler and try to get these seams really nice and flat. And then I'll go over it with my iron. Because what can happen is they sometimes fold in on themselves, and then you won't get a nice straight edge. So even if you're ironing it, you maybe ironed it together, instead of giving it that good straight seam. Everything is ironed and nice and straight. And the next step is simply to do a top stitch all the way around. And that's going to serve 2 purposes. It's going to close up our gap for us, and then it'll just reinforce the fabric, because we are going to be kind of pulling on this when you tie it together. And of course it just makes it look more polished and finished. So if you're not familiar, the top stitch is just another straight stitch, but this time it's going to be on the outside of the fabric so that we can see it. Before we did the stitch, our fabric was right sides together, then we've flipped them so you don't really see the stitch, it's holding it together, but this stitch is on the outside. And so I don't know that I'd say it's decorative, but I guess it could be. If you want it to be, you could use a decorative stitch, but I just do a straight stitch and go all the way around again. Just in case you've heard any strange noises, I thought I'd show you. We have a little visitor here. Jasper. He's our puppy and he loves to be right by me, so I gave him a new toy to entertain him while I'm trying to show you guys this tutorial. Now you'll want to have a different seam allowance for this. Where's my, okay. I wanted to start where the hole was, so I made sure I got it good and strong there. I usually do 1/4 of an inch. You can do whatever you like, whatever you're comfortable with, but you want to make sure that you definitely get those edges there. Make sure the fabric is within that seam so it holds it together. So again, put your presser foot down and make sure you do a back stitch so you hold it good and tight. Okay, once you've got your top stitch all done, now comes the kind of origami folding part. You're going to have the right side of your fabric up, whatever side you want to show the most. And then you're going to reach over to this corner and you're going to take it down in a triangle, lining up along that bottom edge there the best you can. And we're just going to go ahead and pin it a little bit. If you can, pin inside of where your top stitch is. And you can put a pin out here. We're not actually going to be sewing this, but that's just the way we have to lay it out. And then on the other end, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to take this corner and pull it up in a triangle. And go ahead and pin that. Now the next part gets a little confusing, so just hang in there. I know that if I did this, you can do it too. What you're going to do is just take this whole side, and we want to kind of create this triangle here. This bigger triangle. We already had one triangle, we're just kind of matching it on this side. Okay, this is where we're actually going to sew. We're going to pull these together and do a seam right there. Okay? I hope that makes sense to you. So you could even take these pins out at this point. You don't need them. We're going to sew these together. Just kind of pull up on both sides there. I'm trying to do it so you can see me, but I feel like I'm blocking your view. I'm sorry. Okay, let me get a little closer for you. So see, we're just pulling those together, making sure we don't have that extra bit in the back. I just bought these new pins and they are terrible. It's really hard to get them through. I'm really disappointed. But okay, that gives you the idea there. And then you'll flip it over. And this looks so different because there's this big gap, but it just doesn't really matter. You're just gonna pull together this side and pin that as well. Now after it's pinned, you should sort of, I keep poking myself, you should sort of be able to see how it's into our bag shape, right? So just imagine putting a loaf of bread in there. It's gonna be wonderful. Okay, so go ahead and watch that a few times if you need to. Go back, take your time, but I promise it's really simple. It just takes a minute to kind of comprehend that how you fold things. Then, once you've got it, you're simply just gonna sew where you just pinned, where you pulled that up. So we're just gonna sew there, and then the same thing on the other side there. You can certainly do it however you want to. I am just sewing, it's called in the ditch. I'm just sewing right over that seam that we already have there to just try to keep things looking clean. Once you've sewed those seams, you can clip off any threads you have, take out those other pins holding those triangles in place. And quite honestly, you can be done here. It will work as a bag just fine. So we'll turn it the way we want with the fabric showing. But it is reversible. My muslin is kind of boring, but you know. So that could be it. We have a bag. It will definitely work as a bag. Or we can do one more step to box these corners, because I did notice they kind of stick out and look a little funny. Let me show you when I put my loaf of bread in. Here's our loaf of bread, and we can put it in here and tie it good and tight, double. And then it almost has this football shape where these corners kind of stick out. I think if you had a more of a long loaf of bread, that would be awesome. But I usually make round. I don't know about you. And as I said, it depends on what you're using this bag for, but I found that I wanted to box those corners to make it just fit a little bit nicer. Okay, so if you'd like to box your corners, you're just gonna turn your bag right sides in real quick, and we're just looking at these corners that we sewed. We just sewed them, and actually it almost kind of folds into this rectangle, so you're just going to lift that one back and make sure it's, you know, nice and flat and straight, all those good things. And I just went in about 2.5 inches on each side and mark it there, and mark it on the other side, and then we'll just create a triangle here like that. Okay, and then we'll spin and do the same thing on the other side. This time I'm going to flop that back and make sure this corner is nice and straight and flat. And let's see, 2.5. Mark it 2.5 this way and mark it, and then diagonal. And then I'm just going to sew right along this seam here. You can do a decorative stitch, you can do a straight stitch, whatever you would like. I decided to be fancy and do a decorative stitch there. It's just got a little bit of a loop-de-loo in case anyone ever turns this bag inside out. And then you're just going to come as close as you can without cutting into those stitches and cut off that corner. And same thing on the other side. That's it. Now you are totally finished. All right, so we don't have those football ends kind of sticking out there. I would still say it's oblong, so it would still probably work really well for a longer piece or longer loaf of bread, but like I said, mine are usually round. So anyway, I hope you like this tutorial. I hope it helped simplify things for you. It always helps me to see someone else doing something. I love that visual. And yeah, I hope you give it a try. Like I said, it's simple. And it's supposed to really help your bread stay fresh. That's why those 3 types of fabric are recommended, because they help absorb some of the moisture that your bread might give off, and they also have some breathability, which is supposed to help the bread. So you can, I read that you can put your bread like this on the counter for about 3 days, and then after that, just put the whole thing, the bread bag and all, right in the fridge, and it'll keep for another few days in there. But I am hoping to make a meal for a friend of mine who's going through a hard time, and I'm planning on making a sourdough loaf and gifting that to her, and I just think that that makes a really nice gift for someone. So let me know if you try it. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.